This segment of the podcast is sponsored by Traveling Nice Experiences, here to help you create new memories one experience at a time. Contact Traveling Nice Experiences at www.travelingniceexperiences.com to book your summer 2021 travel. Once again, that's www.travelingniceexperiences.com. We're ready to help you create your next memorable experience.
Yeah, Ryan, powerful um, podcast yesterday with Pastor Francois. I'm also enjoying the dub plate recaps, the dub plate recaps, man. Continue doing what you're doing, my brother. We enjoying it.
Previously on the What a Word podcast.
Boys, I am transparent about my reality because people see the fruit and they don't understand the root. They don't understand what you've had to accomplish to go where you are. And our young black men in particular, they don't have what is called a pipeline. And a pipeline takes a precious commodity from one point to another point, and it finds the safest and the most efficient and effective way to get that commodity in the pipeline. So when you think about oil, right? It's a very direct pipeline to get it to from the source to the person who needs it. And within that pipeline, they identify the best methodology to do so. If there is a leak, they fix it with the best people. And so within my story, in order for us to understand our pipeline, we need people who tell stories that are honest. We need to show people the pathway, and we need to make our pipeline accessible. We need to make our pipeline easily available for parents, for students to transition from boyhood to adolescence to teenage years to a young adulthood to adulthood. We have a lot of men operating in pieces, and pieces don't make a whole. We need to connect those pieces, deal with the hurt, deal with the unaddressed childhood trauma.
Welcome to the What a Word podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Sharp. I enjoyed that recap word, also known as the podcast dub plate, from my season one's guest, Dwayne Keynes. He reminds us of the importance of transferring precious commodities effectively and efficiently. Those commodities are sometimes our stories and our testimonies. Those help others to know, one, you're not alone, and two, they aid in helping others to avoid the mistakes we made. They also serve as fruits of encouragement. So, a powerful word, and I've enjoyed the recaps, as you know, and them because I've been getting feedback from my listeners, and I really appreciate the engagement of my listeners. My guest today, interestingly enough, is a geotechnical and civil engineer. So as we talk about transferring of precious commodities, that connects with her experience. Not only is she doing impactful work, but she's paying it forward by starting a STEM school, one that's currently engaged. She has a summer program currently running, but she has plans, a major goal to introduce students to STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and interestingly enough, music. She has a single out that I'll discuss as well called Live Forever. So join me in welcoming engineer, recording artist, cultural icon, cultural influencer, Joanna Smith, to the What a Word podcast.
Thank you.
All right, so talk to us about STEM education. The last time you were here, we did discuss your goals, and you did indicate that that was a direction you were going in. But why? Why STEM education? Why do you believe this is so important?
Sure. So STEM science stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, just in case those are out there that need a little bit more understanding on what it is. But the fields of STEM are not as diverse as we would like at this time. And I really think that these are the spaces where there is a lot of influence because technology is the future. It is here. We talk about AI, artificial intelligence. We speak about, BIM, which is building and modeling, and a lot of these things are more 3D, spatial, anything that has to do with coordinates and putting things together via computer tech or any type of programming or software, or even building things with your hands, understanding a concept and a system that needs to be optimized in any way. A lot of those type of workflows or jobs or opportunities fall under STEM. And so what's happening, or what has happened in the past, is that, the understanding or the love for math and science within the African American community is something that often needs to be strengthened because of the fear of doing it, or the lack of understanding due to just not necessarily being exposed to it early enough, or feeling as though, hey, this is not really my field. This is for someone else.
Right.
And those things are kind of what have, over time, created a barrier between, the leadership in STEM and minorities in STEM. And it's very imperative to expose students to, really, I don't want to say heavily, based mathematical subjects, but I think it's important to be able to expose students to anything that they can get their hands on in terms of what I like to call action learning. And through action learning, one is able to kind of do the analysis and also the synthesis of any type of system. And the analysis and synthesis of systems often do follow a structure and a concept, and numbers are often involved in that. And so, being able to expose students to that at this time, especially at a young age, is very important in order to, I like to say, get them while they're young, before the horse goes through the gate, so that the opportunities and the capacity of one's mind is enlightened from a younger age. Therefore, creating more space for them to grow quickly, really. Mm-hmm.
That's compelling. I don't believe God puts anything on our hearts by accident. How much of STEM informed your own journey? And that's for listeners who may not have caught season 1 when you came on and spoke about your experience.
Right. So, when I was in 8th grade, I already knew I wanted to be an engineer. And as I tell that story over and over again, I backtracked, just kind of sat down with my thoughts and said, wow, when I'm telling the story, I often am speaking to all the things that I had to fix while I was a young child. The printers needed fixing when I was at home, or the antennas of the TV at the time was like black and white or static. I'd have to figure out what angle to use, or, what I was using in terms of the metal to allow it to turn at different angles in order to allow it to work properly and for the color to come back. And so, being responsible for those those duties in the home, and without equivocation, did my father tell me, hey, this is what you're going to do. It was almost as if it was a command versus a suggestion or a question. And so that was really empowering for me. And, I was able to fix a lot of things with my hands. Once again, that hands-on and action learning. And so when people often see me and I say, yeah, I'm a civil engineer, I'm a geotechnical engineer, and I'm Black and I'm a female, it's like, whoa, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I went to HBCU, and then I also went to a WPI, they're like, whoa. Or PWI rather, I totally flipped that around. They're like, whoa, really? Did that? And I'm like, yeah. But then I think about, and I to me in my head, that's a normalcy. I'm like, oh, like, of course, there are many other people out there like this. And then my friends are like, no, the sad reality is that this is not the case everywhere. And then, growing up from 8th grade at the Harvey School all the way to 12th grade, I was used to, being that one person in the class, but I never looked at it necessarily, I would say, as a color thing. I was just like, oh, I'm here, and I was comfortable there in that space. And so I was always, with any type of engineering space, But then, as I got older and I started to sit with the executives, of these Fortune 500 companies and start speaking to them, especially about diversity and leadership and so on and so forth, taking negotiation classes at Yale, I'm just like, whoa, this is really interesting. How can I make sure or see to it that the C-suite or the leadership with an entrepreneurial business the corporate America setting is diverse? What are we doing to create that funnel, if you will, or what I like to call the pipeline effect? And recognizing, where the breakdown was, I remember sitting down with my thoughts and with a few other persons that I was talking to, and really trying to figure out, do I really need to service K through 12th grade, right? Because everybody's like, oh, it's K through 12, or the high school niche because they're going off to college, and I'm like, no, the high school niche already has it. There's more than enough programs supporting that niche. But what about the K through 5th graders? What about the K through 2nd graders? And I don't want to say they're not as supported, but that niche definitely has a wider gap in terms of connecting the dots between the science, technology, engineering, and math piece to high school and then into, your specific field of study. And the more and more I talk to different individuals and see folks that are lined up within STEM, they're like, yeah, we gave this to, we exposed our child to this at a very young age. And so, I mean, that doesn't have to be everybody's story, but it definitely allows you to have, I would say, more cards on the table to be able to play that game versus saying, oh, I didn't know anything about this and now I don't like math. And students are really thinking about, what they don't like and what they like from at least 1st and 2nd grade, and so, when I see that, I recognize like, wow, Joanna, confirmation. You're in the right space. This is where we need to be. And this is how we expose students, over a period of time to engineering and the science and the technologies, and give them the opportunity to really, to have that hands-on approach like I was afforded at a young age, that they can get into these fields and not think twice about doing a calculus problem or differential equations because it sounds hard, or it's scary. So the exposure and the figuring things out is definitely something that I think is necessary within the space and time. Yeah.
That's powerful. I remember giving your name to a school in Brooklyn, and I think you had posted pictures of that career day event.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures secondhand, but I want to know from you, what did you observe from, and that school runs the range from, I think probably
Yeah.
kindergarten all
K
the
through
way
8.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What did you observe that day in speaking to those students?
So the students didn't necessarily know anything about geotechnical engineering, or a few of them knew about civil engineering. But it was very exciting to be able to show them the rock that was found, 50 or 70 feet, below ground surface, based on a job that I had to do for, I most likely spoke about this already, but the Hunts Point Project or the New Jersey Turnpike, and saying, hey, I'm responsible for this. And basically whatever I give in a report is going to go to the contractor, and they're going to price, they're going to price the job out based on what I give them. And if that information is not sufficient, then it's going to be more expensive. And that's going to be either a loss for the company or those who are bidding on the job. And of course, many other ramifications. And, so they were really excited to see the business side. I always try to come from a holistic standpoint, the business side of things, the actual hands-on side of the project, which was the soil and the sand and the different types of, capacity of rock, depending on how deep you're going and what type of structure you're putting up. And the video, visuals are always important. I like try as much to use all the senses. And they were really excited about it. And I think that exposure, allowed them to say, wow, this is something I can do too. And if I want more information, I will be able to reach out to Ms. Smith on that.
And it's not lost on me, a Black woman with a hard hat in front of young children. The impact must have been far reaching. I cannot imagine what those students must have been thinking. But I'm so happy you went, Joanna. I really am, because you've covered a number of different themes. And I want to touch on one you mentioned earlier, the parental support. Now, it may have sounded like parental coaching in a sense, but it sounds to me like you were encouraged. I don't want to use the word pushed into STEM, but you were encouraged to go in that direction. How important is parental
Oh man,
support encouragement?
you hit the nail on the head. And parental encouragement is paramount when we speak to where students want to go, what they want to do with their lives, and also the perspective on what can be done. So my parents, of course, the Caribbean parents, you can do it, reach for the stars, the whole thing. But it's more than just
You
that.
can and you will.
You can and you will. There is no option, right? You reach and that's it. And my parents were often the sink or swim type. Like, some people will ease you in. It's more like figure it out, you'll be all right type. And I mean, that works for different folks, but I think that preparation, which they did do for me, was also very influential to my choice of study, and that's really what I'm doing for these students here. My goal is to reach at least 500 students in the next 5 years, exposing them to STEM, especially during the summer and during the school year. And I remember every summer, there was no summer that we did not do this. We were given, my parents used to go to Mount Vernon, and there was a bookstore there with all these science and math and all these books. And we were literally given the books to sit down and finish before the summer was over. Every summer, the math books, every summer, the science books, more so the math. I remember that as key. And, it was annoying, but I know that there was no option to say yay or nay. It was going to be done. And it was done. And, I'm very grateful for that. I mean, I was never one to cry about anything or like, oh, why we have to do this, but it was definitely a space of understanding how to gauge school, what discipline really looked like. And these are some of the real factors. The workload, yes, but what does it look like to continue to do work for a long duration of time, sometimes even when you don't want to do it, right? The perseverance and the resilience and bouncing back if a problem took a long time. I remember my dad always would tell me, he was like, you think this is bad? He was like, you're going to have problems where it's going to take you 4 or 5 pages to solve. And he spoke that over my life. And I remember being in grad school and solving like problems we're called application to mathematics. And it was literally like all the math classes put together and applying that to, it's like a world problem, applying that to an actual problem. And I'm just like, this man is crazy. Yeah, but he was right. So I mean, being able to help students recognize and do those things that, at a young age, even kindergarten, we were given that first, second, third grade. And so, as I said, in 8th grade, I already knew I wanted to be an engineer. And so, as you said, yes, encouraged very kindly into a STEM field. And that was great. I mean, I still enjoy it. I look at everything as STEM. The students this year, my friend said to me, he said, I want you to write a song for the STEM camp. And most likely y'all know him, Joel Wallace. And I said, yeah, Joel, I should do that. And he's like, yeah, write the song and put some words to it. And the words came to me, science, technology, engineering, and math is in everything I do. I apply the knowledge I learn every day to create solutions to. Wow. I am smart. I am brilliant. I innovate every day. We are smart. We are brilliant in our thinking and in play.
Have you copywritten the song already?
I have not. I have
All
not.
right,
So
because I was
don't
gonna
take
ask you
it.
to give a piece, but then
Well,
somebody would say,
actually,
"Hey, a song came to me."
apparently, if you already have written the song, it's yours. So, but yeah,
Okay.
and so when I talk about, music and math going together and being interrelated, this is really what I'm talking about, to be able to run a STEM camp here in a really fun way. I love roller skating. Most likely you guys know that if you haven't seen it. I have a roller skating YouTube page that's out now, the Instagram. And my goal is to really be able to impact the New York City area, as I said, at least 500 students, exposing them to math and science. So the students right now are actually exposed to coding. So most likely you guys heard about Scratch and so on and so forth. It's a Massachusetts Institute of Technology program that has already been put into effect. The Legos, they have to build everything together as a team. They code it, the things move. It's just a whole apparatus. There are colors, the electrical engineering portion to this as well. The mechanical engineering side to the camp is roller skating.
How do you
Whoa.
connect roller skating to STEM then?
Right.
What's the
Good
connection?
question. Good question. So, when you think about roller skating, you think about these wheels, right? That's usually the first thing people think about, the wheels. And so the students have been asked to measure the different diameters of circles everywhere around them. They're also able to recognize, the different dimensions that are given. So whether it's inches, feet, yards, whichever the case is. And they also understand what the radius is, the diameter is, what a chord is, what a sector is on a circle, and the different diameters that change depending on the type of, circle or wheel that they are using. Also, materials is another aspect of engineering. You talk about materials and mechanics. That changes a lot in terms of friction, in terms of the actual system and how something moves or works, depending on the type of material that's used. Of course, we know that, right? We don't want to use cheap material for different things. Like imagine if you decided, oh, I want to take this out the oven, but I'm going to use like something that's a lighter plastic. Boom, that's it. That's it for everybody, right? For the food, your hand. And so it is when we talk about systems and materials, and we always try to use something that's relatable. So students are able to take their wheels off as well. The mechanical aspect to that, or the technology and the science aspect to that, is understanding the parameters of the materials. So aluminum, if we're using something that's like a heavier plate, the thickness of the plate. And these are different types of terms for how you put your shoe on the actual skate for the part to roll. The 45-degree angle or 90-degree angle or a 10-degree angle, which will allow you to spin in a different way and direction depending on the center of gravity. So students have been exposed to friction forces and what that looks like with a normal force, going through their skate, and then the weight of their skate opposing that force, right? And then when they're turning, now they're talking about physics and motion, and they're talking about momentum and how things continue to move depending on the force that's applied, right? Newton's 3 laws. And so it's really great to be able to expose students to math and science in a very fun way. And I've always thought that was very important to the growth of learning, and also just being able to figure things out. Because when things and tasks seem daunting, then that's kind of when people shy away and they're just like, I'm not good at this, and so on and so forth. And especially the gender has a lot to do with that. A lot of the time females might say, hey, this is not really for me. This is for the boys to do. And I've recognized by watching them, we're all brilliant. And women, the young girls, I have a 7-year-old, the youngest in my camp right now is 4 years old. That is my nephew, Loy. And being around all the other kids, the oldest one is 10, and he's able to, adjust and do all of these different things. But my other youngest is 7 years old, and she is really one of my biggest stars. Very quick, and you don't only have to be quick to be, the star, but based on how people might look at you like, oh, wow, she can solve that really quickly, or she understands the concept. I say stuff like, hey, I have a financial advisor come in and say, hey, I want you to understand about taxes. This is what we're teaching our kids at this age, 4, 7, 10. This is what they need to know. When you get a salary, what happens? They're going to take 30 to 40% of your taxes out. What does that look like? If I have $240,000 and I say, hey, I'm going to take out, divide that by 4, 40% of that. What does that leave you with? And she says, 60,000. I said, yes, that's how much they're going to take out in taxes. So what does that mean for you? We have these type of conversations so that we understand science, technology, engineering, and math revolve around numbers, right? And numbers, whether that is something that we can see or we can feel while we're moving, motion, a hands-on approach, measuring things, diameters, forces, that are applied, whether that is, weight or wind force, somebody pushing you, all these different aspects of really taking a holistic view and outlook on science, technology, engineering, and math, and recognizing that the words of that song really speaks to what these students can do, and really allowing them to recognize this. I always think about when I'm older, and as they get older, and when something they've learned at a young age, they are able to hum that or think about that or sing those lyrics. It's now embedded in their conscience, or their subconscious, if you will. And so they will always call upon that versus any negative outlook that they may have on themselves, right? And so, these are the things that really empower me to move this forward, especially when we talk about STEM and the impact that it has in our community, and especially on the young children overall.
To add to what you said, Joanna, there is a parent or a student who is either very happy with us now or upset at Brother Sharp for bringing you on this late in the summer. Why you didn't bring her on early so I could, get my kids enrolled in the camp, it's twofold. So 5 to 15, is that the target group of?
Yes, that's the target. Yes, that's okay. The target.
And this is a summer camp. Is it going through the fall as well? Are there plans for that?
So,
and I'm asking for the parent who is upset at me now for bringing you on in August.
Right. So I love that you said that. We actually have a official company launch for Daily Smith STEM in September. So September 19th, 2021, save the date. There are going to be different folks that will be offering services for tutoring and academic, improvement, if you will. But for me, this is really something I'm looking to take to schools. So I'll be working with schools moving forward. But for the summer of 2022, we're going to be doing this again. It'll be on a larger and wider scale. So start getting your students enrolled now. Start reaching out. We are looking to create a space, especially within the Northeast Bronx, where students are able to grow and they're able to be exposed to many different aspects of technical, educational information and opportunities, as well as technical sports. So anything that has a heavy base in science, technology, engineering, and math. I don't know if last time I spoke about me being a scuba diver. I have an open water certification for 60 feet. I also skydive, talking about air pressure, G-forces, Reading engineer, as you all already know, and especially the aspect of roller skating. They actually have a STEM aspect of this that's also connected to different rinks. And so students for this semester, or this summer rather, will be going to that and experiencing that this summer at some of the rinks. So, this is something that we're creating as an ongoing thing. Hey, as we keep talking, maybe we can do a one-time roller rink STEM program. I like that, Ryan. I'll keep that in mind. Even if it's September, October, November, just once a month or something like that, and really expose students to that. But yeah, so 2022, we'll have something coming in for the summertime as well for the STEM camp. And for the schools, if you are part of a school right now, feel free to reach out. I've been working with a few charter schools. I've also worked with Bronx Works, which is a nonprofit initiative here in the South Bronx, which is great. And I'm also looking to work with our Northeast Bronx spaces as well. So that's where Daily Smith STEM is headed for 2022. However, we still have openings for the summer. We have 2 more weeks of camp left. So if this comes out before that, August 20th of 2021. Before that, you all can always register. We'll have a nice big graduation here. And I'll also send that over to Ryan for August the 19th. So there'll be an exhibition of students and their work and what they have learned. And I'm really excited because I definitely think, they are ready for school. I don't want to say over-prepared, but definitely ahead of their class. And that's very important. We're in being able to grow as a leader, as one that's prepared and one that's resilient and really empowered is necessary. So that's that.
Let's have the tough conversation now.
Mm-hmm.
The STEM program that's being accessed by individuals in Wakefield, where you and I grew up, the Wakefield Bronx community.
Mm-hmm.
You're 5 to 15. What have you seen in terms of the preparedness of the range of students that you have? Are they getting the access to STEM programs in the public schools, or is it under-resourced?
So the students that I've worked with, or I'm working with currently, are all in charter schools. So they are doing pretty well. However, of course, I'm pushing the envelope a little bit more so that they would be more advanced for their class and their grade. The students I've worked with different organizations who are not in charter schools, it is very, very sad. It really is. And they brought me in because they said, hey, I want you to be a part of this after-school program that will really be able to lift these grades and the understanding and the concept of math and science for the students. I have students already in 3rd and 4th grade that are saying, I don't like math. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to have anything to do, and that's fine, but it shouldn't be a space of, I am just so saddened by this because I'm not good at it at all, that now I don't want to be a part of it. It should be, I'm okay, or I'm good at this, but I like this, right? And so we don't want to be cut out of our STEM fields because of lack of knowledge or the capacity to do better. And that's really the problem that this work is rectifying. The students, a lot of them were not prepared. I had a student who was about 7 years old and he didn't know what 1 + 5 was. I literally was about to get upset and then had to take a breath and just start with 0 + 1. Okay. And then I had a few students that were really sharp, and knew. I actually introduced them to Excel, and a lot of them, I would say at least 75% of them that went through that Excel class knew how to add and use Excel, using a sum of different numbers in the 3rd, 4th, and even 1st grade. That was exciting to me because I recognized that they could do it. That was just for some of them, but for others where they had to manually add, the materials for their project, it was very difficult. And that in and of itself was just disheartening, The
limitations in the math area followed in the science as well? Was that your...
Is that my correlation? I had some students that liked science and some that didn't like math. I had some that liked math, but often they would like science as well. So in terms of the correlation of math and science, I definitely think it goes hand in hand, but for some students, they just like science and that was it. And they didn't necessarily want to deal with the numbers. But I definitely think, I would say for at least 80% of students, the outliers are that 20% that would say, oh, we only like science and not only, but then again, I think also the exposure, their exposure to science and math is not one that I could necessarily say, okay, well, I don't want to say it's not valid, but a lot of the students they had never done a science project before, and they were like in first, second, and some of them in third grade. And so this was their first time that they were doing a science project and a STEM project overall. So I think that there would have to be more exposure for them from from their classrooms and their students and their teachers, with that subject to necessarily give a definite answer on what their interpretation really is wherein that's concerned.
So you seem to be saying, Joanna, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the pool of students you worked with this summer anyway come from charter schools and public schools?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
the charter schools. So the ones that I'm working with now for the STEM camp come from charter schools. The one that I've worked with in the past that were all public schools, it was about a conglomerate, about 5 different public schools. I worked with about 45 students ranging from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And I was responsible for creating a personalized curriculum for all of those classes.
Gotcha.
And so what we did there was more solar power and energy. So they did more electrical engineering systems where they had to create circuits in kindergarten and also through the 5th grade. They had to put those in the homes, and they also had to understand how to use they call it a voltmeter to measure current. Just something that was very intense. I used to do this in college. But for me, I always think that we can always push the limits of knowledge. It doesn't necessarily have to be as in depth as students, knowing what a series and a parallel circuit is, but it can definitely be them understanding how to make sure that they know how to run a circuit and turn it off and on, even in kindergarten and in the 5th grade. So, kind of that type of program is what I worked with. And I know that, it could have been a little intense for them, but I think the level of being able to add and subtract was just really kind of sad and deplorable overall with some of them that I did work with. And it's definitely a complete difference with the students I'm working with now and those that I worked with in the past.
What allowed the charter school students to have access? Is it grant funding that allowed them to have access to the camp?
No. So their parents heard about the camp and took that as a part of the program. What happens in the summer usually is that you have things like NYC camp, or you have something like the other camp, Bronx House. So there are different camps that are already kind of initiated, especially on a yearly basis. And so students would go to those camps. And so to kind of be a part of, that initiative would be doable. I wouldn't say nay, but that information is usually kind of like an ongoing annual thing for students. So the students that I've worked with were people who knew me and also were interested or knew of me through someone else. So referrals, right? But the goal is really to get this on a grander scale and to be able to be a Bronx House and to be a, program wherein students are able to see this on an annual basis, and they will. And they'll be able to do all the fun aspects of this. The portion of this that's really exciting to me is just the holistic approach. And I've always said, geez, like I just can't think in one dimension. It's like science, technology, engineering, and math, the 4, right? We got X, Y, Z, and then maybe A somewhere. I'm thinking in terms of like a coordinate system, but when I think about skating, I think about the science and the technology part of it. And technology is in like electrical engineering. Some skates have the wheels, they're magnetized and they light up and so on and so forth. But then I also think about the community aspect of it, wherein so many people do this activity. And I also think about the fitness and health. You're burning so many calories, but in a fun way that you don't have to be at the gym like, I have a set of 10 more, and not bashing those that have that. I mean, I love the gym, but really a space where there's a sense of community, there's a sense of love, there's a sense of, being able to be fit together and to come against diseases and any other type of atrocities that may plague our community, a sense of peace among everyone, and just really getting to know people. This has even brought me outside my comfort zone, which is funny. And now I'm like at different parks skating and I have people coming up and saying, hey, how could I be a part of that? And I'm just like, oh, great. And sometimes I'm just kind of like, yeah, I want to talk, or I don't necessarily want to do too much talking, but it definitely allows me to, see from a different standpoint of a community building type of effect and the health portion of that.
Like what you're doing too, in terms of the life lessons, teaching students to push through the group and teamwork, because so much of that is informed by our abilities to work along with other people and people with different temperaments. The thing about groups too is you can be in a group with somebody who is not carrying their weight necessarily, and that, a lot of college fights and infighting comes from group pairings as well. So you're teaching students early about what life has in store for them too, and I think that is very, very impactful and sobering at the same time. Are we scratching the surface with STEM preparation in your mind?
I think so. I think that, as we kind of hit on earlier, that the parents have to be a part of this, and have to be very deliberate about raising leaders, and, intentional about exposing students to so many different aspects of things. When I think about STEM, I don't just think about the science, technology, engineering, and math part. I also think about the business side, the negotiation side. When I took that class at Yale, as I did a certificate in negotiation, and I always wanted to do that because I said, I'm going to teach this to the young students. Young kids are already negotiators. They know how to drop their voice. They know how to make their voice high. They know how to create that sympathetic tone. You're a father, you know that. They give you the puppy dog eyes when they want something. And that's really what it is, right? How can I add value to this person so they can add value to me at the lowest cost for them, right? Where they won't feel like they're getting burned, but yes, I'll be receiving something of great value, and vice versa. And so, upon creating this understanding, I think about even when I started as an entry-level engineer. And I said, geez, man, if I knew this information, I would have come in here swinging, because I already know I have the capacity to build a network. So if I have a smaller group of people and this company wants to expand, I can say, hey, in my first interview, this is what I bring to the table. And I know that you all are trying to move this. Ask those type of questions. How can I be of help? Well, I've done X, Y, Z in the past. I've led a group from here to, 20 people in 2 or 3 years or in a year. Speak to those other aspects that can be used for negotiation and then can be used for the financial aspect of things. We often speak about our communities are being redlined or, not being able to live in the neighborhoods we want. Why? Not because of saving, everybody's on the stock market and the Forex and the Bitcoin and Dogecoin, have mercy, and that's great. And we also need to be able to put those 10 or 20,000 of dollars into that based on how much you're making. And so a lot of the times we think about STEM, but we necessarily don't think about the finances. And a lot of the times as minorities, we are getting lowballed in what we're being paid. However, if we expose our students to this at this age, you asked about scratching the surface. Yes, we expose them now to understand what this looks like, which is what they've been doing. A lot of them say, hey, I want to be a doctor. I said, well, if you want to be a doctor, you should make it about $250,000 and add $100,000 because now you're looking at a trajectory of doing that in the next 14 years, right? So now we're talking about, yes, not scratching the surface and then going a little bit deeper so that they can start thinking about this now. Because if I knew those numbers now, I mean, from that age, there's no way that somebody would have been like, oh, well, yeah, you can come to this company and we're gonna pay you the minimum of the baseline of what we can get away with when you have a whole nother $100,000 sitting there that literally can be leveraged based on what I say or what I understand about my worth, my value, and what I can bring to the table, and how I can be able to grow the community that I'm with, and also grow myself and make the company look good and also myself look good in less than 5 years, right? So we want to have those conversations. You talk about scratching the surface. Yes, I want to go as deep as I can with these youth in the 6 weeks that I have, and I see them every day for 8 hours, so that they can understand that when they step into the work field and the workforce as a young Black individual, as a doctor, as a chef, as a nurse. I have a 10-year-old right now. He's already a published author. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. So now he has passive income just coming in. We can go online and say, hey, let's look up that book from Zane that says A Road Trip with My Dad. Shout out to Zane. Who's one of my students here, right? I can go on Amazon and check that and purchase my book. And there goes that into Zane's account. He's already telling me I'm going to be a millionaire by the age of 18. These are the type of conversations that we want to have with the young people who are 7 and 4 and 10, so that they have already understood what it looks like to be on that pathway and into that trajectory, right? Versus I bless my parents. I appreciate them very much. And they've done as much as they could. And now it's my time to do that for the next generation, and not to scratch the surface, right? But to go a little bit deeper.
I love your diplomacy. But I'm wondering if you are comfortable saying that the charter schools seem to be doing a better job of preparing STEM leaders than our public schools. I don't want to put you on the
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't want to
put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if we would say, we have some concerns about the ability of the public schools to prepare students for STEM. Is that an easier wording?
Right, you are too funny. That easier wording.
There may be exceptions, but from what I'm gathering, not just from our conversation here, but I have, you and I know parents who are doing their best in terms of investing in the future for their children. But the reality is many of them can only afford the public school. They can't afford to pay into the tuition. Are those parents at a disadvantage in terms of STEM leader preparation?
Wow.
And I could take this out if it's too much. I could edit this part.
I'm always trying to look at the glass half full.
Yeah.
I would say that there's definitely much more that can be done in terms of creating leaders in STEM, especially on the public school level. And I think that, this program is very unique in terms of being able to create solutions for that. And upon working with some of the students that I did work with about those 5 public schools, we were able to create we did a few surveys with the students, a before and after survey, And it was really great to see that their exposure allowed them to understand more about, STEM and how it works and how they can apply it and how it can be applied to their daily, everyday activity, right? They can see the buildings and understand, oh, wow, brick costs this amount per one. How much would that, what is the unit cost of that, right? How would I actually put that together? What does it look like to run, circuits through an entire structure, an entire building? And their numbers now, they understand, the concept of math and science a little bit more than what they did. So this is definitely something that I think needs to be worked on. This program is the goal is to reach at least 500 students, but there are more students that need to be reached, and most likely will be, through something like this. But in terms of what needs to be done, there's definitely a lot more work to do. And we think about the literacy of math and science, and also just literacy in general of reading and so on and so forth. We know that those are crucial spaces to how one develops and how they're able to service their community and where they are. And so we want to just continue to grow that line of demarcation, if you will, and just continue to press towards, the higher spaces of excellence, if you will, wherein the public schools are concerned. Definitely believe that there's much more work to be done. But of course, depending on your zip code, my Lord, you would be able to be serviced in different public schools based on where you are. But sure, that's why my focus was in the New York area, especially the Northeast Bronx area, is very important because we have a lot of brilliant students here. However, we need to make sure that the resources available are there and that they're also able to see people that look like them, that are doing, what they like to do or what they think might not be something that they are capable of doing.
Are you enjoying the What a Word podcast and want to learn how to share it with others on social media? It's easy. Go on your favorite podcast app, find the What a Word podcast, and hit share. Please remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you won't miss any episodes. And if this podcast has encouraged or inspired you, then please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps new listeners find us easier. Thank you.
Powerful. And as you speak about one of the goals of the STEM, Daley Smith STEM, as you speak about one of the goals, 500 is gigantic. It's an enormous task. It's far-reaching. Who are you getting assistance from to help you in this important move to get STEM leaders of the future? Who is, because you can't possibly do it all on your own, who is assisting you? Who is coming before students, as you said, to give them living, breathing examples of individuals who are in the STEM field?
Right. So a lot of the folks that I've reached out to and been a part of their circle have been coming from engineering organizations like Deep Foundation Institute, the National Society of Black Engineers, American Society of Civil Engineers, some other sponsors that have been great in terms of being able to, at times, sponsor different things and different programs that we may have, materials and so on and so forth. And a lot of my engineering friends, my personal engineering friends, some of my lawyers friends, my doctors, also folks that are in wealth and finance and building. A lot of folks have, at this stage, have volunteered their time. Some folks have also sponsored students, and that has been very helpful. especially within this journey. And, it's just been great in terms of people even just sharing information. I actually have a student here, and I was saying to one of my friends, I said, I don't know how this person got my information. And so I remember asking the mom, and I said, hey, how did you find out about the camp? And she said, my aunt sent me the information. And so it's just like that, I mean, it's simple math, right? The bigger sample size you have, the more you have to pull from, or you might send out 100 or 1,000, or 100,000, and so even if you get 10% of that 100 or 10% of that 100,000, it definitely makes a difference in terms of who is coming and who's able to get this information and gather information. So that's just a little bit about how we sponsor, how we get folks to be a part of this, and also just how we move things forward. Sometimes everyone might say, hey, well, I don't have 100,000 or $500,000 to give toward this cause. I don't have the tax write-off that I need. It's actually a 501c3, so you can get a tax write-off if as interested. But the reality is, each one tell one, each one reach one, so that we are able to build students and young people and leaders, as I said, within corporate settings and also within the entrepreneurial setting of work. And that in and of itself is very, very important to where we're trying to get to. Statistically, we think about the numbers, the percentage, I believe, of African Americans now about 13%. Within the United States, and we have about 5 to 4% of African Americans representing the job market, or within STEM, or the career market within STEM. And so, my goal is to really, if we can inch that to 1 to 3% more in the next 5 years, we would have done something that would really be able to impact our generation. Our ancestors have done it for us. Let us be the ones to stand up and say, hey, this is how we're going to move this forward, and allow everyone to have a chance, and to really grow the level of wealth and generational capacity to be more and to do more in this world.
I love this. You're talking about options. You're talking about shifting the culture. You're talking about confronting our current under-resourced curriculums. Could you share with us some success stories, if you will? Just a name of a student within the 5 to 15 age group, what they came in with, and what you saw firsthand in terms of what the exposure did for them.
Oh, sure. So,
and you can take your time, Joe. There's no rush.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier this young man who has already started writing his own books. He actually came into the program earlier on, before we started the STEM camp, to grow his understanding of math. His parents felt that he could have done better. And so he really just started doing work with me.
How old was he, Joanna? Or how old is he?
I would say this was about a year ago. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, about a year ago. So he's, how old is he now? He's 10. So he was 9 at that, about 9. And so we worked with a few sessions with him, and he was the valedictorian of his class, as well as the person who spoke to and who's also an author. Awesome. So that was really exciting to see. In terms of the students who were a part of the STEM program prior to this, there was about 45 students that I worked with this summer, or not this summer, rather, I guess you would call that the spring season. And there was one student in particular, he was in kindergarten. That made me so happy. So part of our program also speaks to public speaking, right? We're raising leaders. So you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to speak to what you have done and what your product. And so this young student was very quiet during, our time together. I'd say I spent about 3 months with them. And I can't mention his name, but in working with him, we had the students in kindergarten create a layout of what they wanted to have for their solar city. And I literally listened to everything they said. So one of them said, I want a Statue of Liberty in the downtown. They said, I want an airport. We want the apartment buildings, we want a store. And so we literally took that and created a landscape design of where everything was going to be. And he, in particular, was responsible for putting the airplane together. And so he was also responsible for doing we had a hypothesis and scientific experiment about talking plants. So if they were to talk to the plant, what was their hypothesis? Do they think that the plant is going to, the one that they speak to is going to grow better than the one that they don't speak to? And for him, his hypothesis was that the one that they speak to, like many people, would think would grow. And so there was actually a 3-inch difference in the growth of the plant. The one that they did not speak to actually grew more. And so this young man spoke so eloquently to the plant and the growth of one versus the other. And his science board, which he did help to put together, and also to the airplane that he built with of course, the motor and the propeller moving as they designed and put together that circuit. And he's just in kindergarten, I also had a first grader who was introduced to Excel, and he was really great with math. And so he added everything and then used Excel to check his numbers. And on one of the surveys, I had a question for those that did do Excel. And one of their questions was to give the function as to how they would create the summation of all the numbers. And I had a lot of different things that were very questionable in there. And he wrote that thing up. He knew exactly what it was, from knowing absolutely nothing. And of course, Excel is a very complicated, space or product rather, that you can do many different things in, but I don't think people are thinking about first graders using Excel. And so, it's really exciting to kind of see that end product, especially that someone of that young age group responded so well and understood it thoroughly. And so these are just a few of the success stories for some of the students that have come through, our program. I have a 7-year-old, I know we haven't spoke about the music portion of this, but a 7-year-old who is playing hymns. I don't know if you guys have seen hymns before, but it's usually like the right hand and the left hand moving at the same time. And these are students that are coming in knowing absolutely nothing, right? With the capacity to say, oh, I can play the song for a service. And that's really my goal. So, the success stories are really endless. Those are just the ones that I remember as of right now. But, it's really great to be able to see how students are responding to the information that's given to them, to be able to measure that, and also to be able to see their growth leadership-wise, and also being able to be a great team player, and also being able to understand their value and their worth, and to have a voice moving forward within their schools, and also sooner than later within their careers.
That's awesome. And I love the segue, the M in STEM for math, and we can use it for music as well. I love the shift.
Come on now. You don't say a word. I love it. Wow.
I love the shift. And most may know that you are a worship leader as well. But what informed now this new single, I Want to Live Forever? Was music always the undercurrent where you knew one day you had to put pen to paper and write and record?
That is such an amazing question. So my parents actually put me in piano lessons from the age of 4. All right, so I've been playing piano for 26 years now. And, it was very scary My piano teacher, bless her soul, was a little rough. Most likely people already know her. If you know Miss Myrtle Limhard, if you in the Bronx and you was over there on Baychester, then you know.
Did the
But
fingers
I
get hit with
always,
the ruler?
okay, you already know what time it is, okay? And the pencil marks are scratching up the music if you did it wrong. And if you forgot that you were not supposed to play that note because it was a tie, scratch on the pencil. Oh yeah, she was from Panama. She was not to be played with at all. But she was a great teacher, great lady, bless her soul. She passed away when I was 8. And I just remember, no, she passed away when I was 12. So I only had training with her formally for 8 years. And I knew that I loved to play by ear, but she would not allow me to do that. I'll never forget. And, you know, it was just a space for me, especially in high school, transitioning. I always knew how to play piano, so I'd go to different functions and people would always know me for that as well. But in terms of the music, I always used to sing as well. So, you know, that was never an issue. I always used to do poetry in high school, but for some reason, I just never thought that I knew how to, you know, do like put the words together. And I remember being at church and our sister Pam Beckford, bless her soul, she sat on my table and she said to me, you need to start writing your own music. She's like, there are people that's putting stuff out and I'm confused how this is happening. You need to start, you know, writing. And I said to her, I said, no, I'm just a background singer. At the time, I was singing background for a few people. And she said, no, you need to stop that thought process and you need to start putting out your own stuff. And I remember saying, I can only write poetry. And she was like, what is poetry? Isn't that music? Like, what do you mean? And this was from a failed attempt at trying to write a song. I didn't know what to write. I had the chords and everything, but just didn't know. The words to me were just a little shoddy, and you know, I kind of gave up on that. 2 weeks later, I wake up and I have words and lyrics to a song. I'll never forget Memorial Day, 2018, and I wake up at 3:00 in the morning because we don't have work, and I literally start humming. And I take my phone out. I don't, you know, 3:00, you might be like, I'm a little tired, man. I ran for that phone and started recording the song and the words and everything. And that was really the start of it. I struggled for 3 years to put this out. I don't know why it was such a struggle. Maybe it was something new. I didn't want to release it yet. I worked with my amazing producer, Mr. Whitnell Paul, also one of my really great high school friends, and he was crazy talented and gifted. And he produced everything and, you know, just really struggled with putting this out. But my mom had a tape, I'll never forget, when I was a very young child. How was I? Maybe I was 10 or 9. My mom produced her own, well, she didn't produce it, but she had her own tape. And that's when tapes used to be like the thing. And I guess like subconsciously that had already, you know, kind of dawned on me and kind of got into my spirit. And so when this young lady said to me, yeah, you gotta turn this thing around, I thought it was a beautiful experience to do. And my friend said, hey, come on to the studio, let's get to work. And that's what we did. So, you know, God is good. There's a program or a ministry there, the SDA as well. Devontae Gilhurst is actually studying theology ministry out at Andrews. I think he's doing D-Min? Anyway, so in being a part of his ministry, he was started through COVID. He has this thing called Breaking the Mold Ministries, and it's been just a very real platform for young Christians. And people are sharing very serious things about life, you know, depression, anxiety, suicide, very real topics. And so he had a camp. We went to a camp recently, sometime in July. And he said, and something in my spirit was just like, you have to put this thing out before. So I gave them kind of like, they got the original, they were the ones to hear the song first. And I had put it out before I went up. And I was like, oh, it's going to be released by then. But no, if you're doing music, CD Baby takes 2 weeks to release your stuff, at least. And that was really the break to it, where I said, okay, we got to get this out. And we got to get it out before. And that was literally a miracle, that whole space, that camp. And when I came back, the 23rd of July, it was out. And, I had a few folks work on the cover, and it was just really beautiful. The person who did the lyric video was actually from Zambia. And I've always said to myself, I really want to take this message to the world. Whatever I'm doing has to be, a worldwide movement. And, during this season, God has blessed me with an amazing boyfriend. Most likely y'all know him, Joel Wallace. And, he too is a musician and a songwriter and has put out a few things and has just been very helpful. I just thought God is so funny, just the seasons, how everything lines up to be aligned to somebody who's just like, yeah, this is what we do. So come on, let's rock. And I remember just saying Joel Wallace, Butterflies, and Amazon Music. And he just came up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is totally what's going to happen in a few. And so, on the 23rd, on the Friday, July 23rd, when I said to Alexa, play Joanna Smith Live Forever. It was just amazing to know that this was something that, I saw my mom do, somebody who I'm very close to is doing now. And it's really gone to the world. And then to know that the person who's doing the lyric video for this is from Zambia, the motherland, a whole nother space. And trust, I'll be there very soon. But it's just really great to see when you've asked God to order your steps, and also you're working towards the goals, even though sometimes it feels like, oh, geez, why am I not there yet? They are, the words and the works are really coming to fruition. Yep.
It's Joanna, I think you touched on something so significant, because that song, I Want to Live Forever, it speaks to the hopes of most people. We're tired of death, we're tired of pain, we're tired of suffering, and you didn't play around with what takes us to get to that living forever place. You are pointing to your faith, and you are amplifying scripture, and you're most importantly giving individuals hope that this doesn't have to be the end all for us, that we can, because I want to live, I want to outlive I want to live forever. I don't want to die early. I want to be there for my family. So this song tells us that, but for sin and but for, the detour, we would have been living, fulfilling lives forever, with God. And this is a very hopeful song. And I love the lyrics. I love the melody. I love you're on the background as well, I'm thinking. I hear something.
Yeah, I'm singing alto on the background. Shout out to Brianna Steele, who's on soprano, and also doing some alto, and then to Nicholas Koch, who was singing tenor on the track. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Being a singer yourself, you would know. Yeah. Just really quickly, I think it's amazing, even thinking, as you just said that about hope, and just the lineup again, the timing. As I said, I was struggling to put this song out. And then to think about the timing as to when the song would come out during COVID, when so many people, we lose people, yes, but to think about how many people have lost their fathers, their wives, their children, to COVID, and maybe other circumstances in between that as well. It's just really saddening, but also the song gives so much hope to people, especially right now during the season. And it's something that is really thrilling to be a part of, and also humbling as well. And I'm just ever so grateful for that time, that stretch, and that struggle to get this thing out, because it's definitely landed in the season as to which it can be, I think, received the best.
And are there more songs coming
Yes,
out?
there are more songs. So September 26th, we'll also be doing a listening party
Nice.
out in Scarsdale at the Hampton Inn. So
nice.
don't worry, you'll be invited. I'll send all the information
Nice,
as it's coming
nice.
across and coming along. So, we have a launch for the STEM program on the 19th, and then the launch or the listening party for the music on the 26th. And so, when we speak about the music and math, once again, it comes full circle. And I'm just so grateful, the vision that I received when I was young, I would say maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, was music and math being blended. And I was just like, God, this is crazy. Like, I don't even know. And he's just like, I remember weeping for like 2 weeks, because I'm like, this is beyond me. It's like, yeah, your gift is not for you. It's for other people. It's for the world, and so to see Live Forever kind of spreading its wings, and to see it reaching Zambia already. Imagine somebody from Zambia said, hey, we're going to do this lyric video, and that's through a personal friend. So the goal is to be in Zambia for real, God's willing, next year, June. And I'm just like, wow, this is what we said we wanted to do, and it's really happening. And, this is not my work, this is not my hand, but this is God's hand. And I just want to really encourage everyone or anyone who has a dream or a thought process or an idea to really push for that, and just be like, I tell God all the time, I'm like, this is yours. If you want it to look crazy, that's on you. That's on you. But God could do everything else but fail.
Powerful word. Joanna, please tell listeners, just update them on how they can find you, give them all the media platforms you're on, including, please, the YouTube channel with you roller skating.
My social media platforms, you can just put in Joanna Smith. Everything will come up. Joanna Smith, music, Live Forever will come up. Joanna Smith, STEM, it will come up. So anything that you are interested in, like Joanna Smith music, Joanna Smith STEM, that information will come up for music, and also for engineering. And then, of course, my trusty website, Daily, DALEY, Smith, Inc.com. And that's really the blend of my mother's maiden name and my father's last name, simply because of their amazing work and sacrifice, and seeing to it that my sister and myself are leaders, within our communities, and in whatever where we really put our hand to. And so I'm just so grateful to them. And I thought it would just really be a space to leave a legacy, for what they have done and who they've been to me, such examples, and really strong and powerful people in my life.
And finally, you seem to get up without an alarm clock. You seem to be walking in a space now where you are content, and you, notwithstanding the challenges with the process, you seem to be moving forward in faith. What can you say to someone who is in that same season where the process is a little overwhelming and uncertain and challenging? What words could you give to encourage them to stay in it and not to throw in the towel?
Sure. I would just, say that once you have life, there is hope. And so, wherever we are in our walk, we always know that there's a better and a bigger space coming for us, simply because it's already promised and because it is so. And so for me in this journey, sometimes I get a little upset. Sometimes I am very excited. Sometimes I am just like, geez, God, what's going on? And I always, when I say always, I mean, there is always a sign. And sometimes we have the sign, but we're not looking, or we're just so disconnected. But just try to see God in everything, literally. And it will shift your entire mindset. When I really think about that, where people always say there is life, there is hope, like that's a real thing. Like even if you're in a tent, like on the side of the road, the fact that you're able to breathe, that means that there's another opportunity for you. And if you're in the penthouse, and you feel like, well, my goodness, what am I doing with my life? I'm not really, doing as much as I would like to do. There's still hope for you, right? And so it's really that space of recognizing that there is more to do, in a space that you're not upset at where you are, but just knowing that it's okay, and you can just move on to the next, and be grateful for where you are, because really your best now most likely is, the better, or will be your worst rather in the next, few weeks or so and so forth. So just hang in there, because God really has you. And sometimes it sounds crazy, but he really does. And he's always creating a way. My mom always tells me about this. I think it's in Psalms where it says the head of the king is in the hand of God, and he turns it whatsoever he will. And that's a real statement. It really is. Whatever idea or vision you have, a lot of the times in our community, it's always finances. Like, I got to do this, but I don't have. I got to do this. But it's really that the ideas that you have, there are people waiting to fund it. There are people waiting to be a part of that, because sometimes those type of people aren't people that do, the thinking of the most innovative things. They're just like, look, I got the money. I want the tax break, or I just want to be of help to anybody. How can I do it? And so you have to think like that, in terms of what you have and what you have to offer. But then you also have to say, let me go out and seek those people out, and let me tell them about my dream, and let me tell them about my goal. I mean, what do you really have to lose? What do you have to lose? And if it's that you have the funds and you're not motivated, then get to a group where you belong. Facebook has so many, Meetup has so many. So there's really no excuse, on the journey, because there's so many people that are here to encourage and to help push us along in terms of being able to create a better generation, for ourselves and for the younger folks that are coming up behind and beside us.
Powerful. The goal of Daily Smith STEM is to expose 500 students within the New York City area to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and music, and to inspire and create more leaders in STEM fields over 5 years. Joanna Smith joins us. You can follow her journey on Instagram. I don't know where she'll be worshiping this weekend, but if you follow her on Instagram, you'll find out where she's leading worship, and you can find out more about not only her current single, Live Forever, but her upcoming music offerings as well. Joanna, thank you so much for joining us again on the What a Word podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ryan. Thank you
Most
so much.
welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome.
Yeah. Oh. How many you know you're gonna be ready when Jesus comes? Here we go. Yeah, say I am going to live forever. Yeah, I'm going to live forever. I am going to live forever when Jesus comes. Yeah, when Jesus comes. Yeah, say I am going clear straight, and it will progress. Let the waves of His mercy carry you through the process. Make sure you're in that first resurrection when that trumpet sounds, so that you can live forever, yeah.
You can live forever.
Oh, I am going to live forever
When Jesus comes,
yeah, when
Jesus comes.
say I am going to live forever, yeah.
I'm going to live forever.
Oh, I am going to live forever
When Jesus comes, Jesus comes.
for I know.
The book of John, chapter 17, verse 3 says, "Now this is life eternal, that they might know Him, the only true and living God, and Jesus Christ, who He hath sent." Rejoice in the fact that soon and very soon we will live eternally through the knowledge and the continued experience of Jesus Christ.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know.
This whole world will soon be
So get
over.
your mind right, and don't you wait till it's over. Get your soul right out to the back till it's over, and get your mind right. Don't you waste time. Get your soul right. Don't you wait till it's over, so that you can live forever, yeah.
You can live forever.
And you can live forever when
Jesus comes,
yeah, when
Jesus comes.
oh, I am going to live forever, yeah.
I'm going to live forever.
Yeah, I am going to live forever when
Jesus comes,
yeah.
Jesus comes.
You heard my cry and supply, so that
You can live forever.
Lord, I love you. Can't wait for the time when
Jesus comes,
yeah, when you come.
Jesus comes.
Yeah, say I am going to live forever, yeah.
I'm going to live forever.
Oh, I am going to live forever
When Jesus comes,
yeah.
Jesus comes.
Yeah, say I. Oh, say
I'm going to live forever. When Jesus comes,
yeah, when
Jesus comes.
be ready.